We felt as we were part of the universe. Cities and nations were not there. We were human beings. It was a very, very strange feeling. Made us feel very, very modest on this enormous space that we have around us. And we understood that we were very unimportant in even the whole planet, in the whole setup.
Hi, I'm Paul from Norway, and today I'm going to show you a really cool museum that we have in Oslo called the Kon-Tiki Museum, dedicated to the Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl. I'm also going to sit down and have a chat with a couple of Heyerdahl's grandchildren. Thor Heyerdahl was a Norwegian explorer who became a global figure through his daring expeditions and controversial theories about human migration. Thor believed that ancient cultures had crossed the world oceans. And in the Kon-Tiki Museum, you can find a raft and a reed boat that he used to show that it could be done. The most famous one is the Kon-Tiki Raft, a simple balsa wood raft replicating the designs of pre-Columbian vessels. On the 28th of April 1947, the Kon-Tiki Expedition embarked from the coast of Peru. They sailed for 101 days, covering approximately 8,000 kilometers. Before reaching the Tuamotu Islands in French Polynesia. This journey served as a practical demonstration of Heyerdahl's theories, challenging the at the time academic views on Pacific migration. While some of Thor's conclusions remain debated, the Kon-Tiki Expedition remains a testament to human courage and the potential for ancient seafaring. The Kon-Tiki journey was later made into a documentary, which won an Oscar in 1951. It has also been published as a book, read by tens of millions of people all over the world. And still today, Thor Heyerdahl and his adventures continue to inspire and fascinate. So the Kon-Tiki Museum takes you through Thor's life chronologically, starting here with this display, which explains where it all started. In 1937, a year after he married his first wife, Liv, they decide to basically escape civilization and go find a paradise on a Polynesian island in the Pacific Ocean. They end up spending not much more than a year there, but during that year, a theory is born in Thor's head. To learn more about this and about Thor Heyerdahl as a person, I'll have a chat with one of his granddaughters. Hi, Liv.
Hyggelig.
So Liv, you are the director of the Kon-Tiki Museum and the granddaughter of Thor Heyerdahl, but you are named after your grandmother.
She was named Liv, and she was my grandfather's first wife, and of course the mother of my father. She was 20, he was 22. They had a bit of a fight with the parents to be allowed to go, but that's what they did. They went to Fatuhiva. He had a relation to the Zoological Institute, University of Oslo. He was supposed to collect and document living species on Fatuhiva, like animals, insects, or plants also. When they were there, they met an old man. They were sitting by the bonfire. He told them that his ancestors came from the east, which was something that was really strange for them to hear, because scientists all over the world agreed that they came from the west, from Asia. Well, what did you say? From the east? How could that be? Well, that's what the legend says, he said, this old man. And that was a game changer for my grandparents, because all about the insects and plants, that was interesting, of course.
But that became secondary.
Yeah, that was secondary. Now, how did actually the people get here?
Yeah, so that's where the whole, the hypothesis was born.
That's right, and they also found they were shown some cultural similarities between South America and Fatuhiva, also stone figures and some petroglyphs, and also the fact that the sea would always break to the eastern side of the island and not on the western side. They went home, and then he started on a thesis about South American Indians and the Pacific, which he worked on for almost 10 years and culminated in the Kon-Tiki Expedition.
Hva er det du holdt på med på vår alder?
Da var jeg veldig interessert i å samle på insekter og alle slags rare dyr i sjøen.
Var du flink på skolen når du var liten?
Ikke sånn spesielt. Jeg var helt gjennomsnittlig. Men jeg var veldig flink i det som interesserte meg. Jeg var veldig flink i naturfag og regning, det synes jeg var interessant. Og så var jeg veldig glad i å skrive stil.
So how was it to have Thor Heyerdahl as your grandfather?
He was ambitious, he was very curious, he had the most wonderful sense of humor. It was really easy to be with him. He had the ability to laugh of any small everyday incident. He loved food. He didn't need anything very fancy. My mother's fish soup was his favorite, with a homemade bread. He told the most extraordinary stories, and both things that he had experienced, adventures that he was going to have. Even at the dinner table, when he was talking with my father and the adult people around, he managed to capture our attention also. When I was 21, he was with us celebrating Christmas. He had a plan. He was going to Peru. He was in charge of this excavation project, a great project, 26 pyramids in the northern part of Peru. He had around 100 people working for him. Almost by accident, he just, well, would you like to join me? Like, you know, and I said, would I like to join? Yeah, yes, I would like to join you. Just a few days later, I was on the plane with him to Peru, so I stayed with him for 4 months.
I know that the younger generation now, they don't have the same relationship to Thor. He's not as known as he was to my generation and the previous generations. Why should young people come here and visit the museum?
The stories that are told in the museum, they are, as they are today, they are facts in a chronological sequence. But in between the lines, there is a story about a person. People did not believe him. Still, he was so sure about his theories and ideas and ambitions, so he fought the resistance.
Jeg er temmelig sikker på at jeg har bevist hovedpunktet i mine teorier. Og det er at det er galt å tro at disse gamle farkostene som de tidlige sivilisasjonene hadde, ikke kunne komme over verdenshavene. Det tror jeg det er ingen som kan benekte, eftersom vi har kommet over. Og mange andre har bygget tilsvarende farkoster efter meg, ikke minst i Stillehavet, og har klart det i samme retning, men ingen har klart det i motsatt retning.
The inspiration that my grandfather could actually give to younger people, I think it's so important. And I think that younger people of today, they should not give up if they have a good idea or they have something that they want to do. They should fight for it. Of course, sometimes resistance is necessary. Any adventure does not have to be like my grandfather's. He had the whole planet as his playground, sort of.
Yeah, it can be just buying a boat and sailing on the Oslo fjord, for instance. How does his legacy live on today?
All the aspects around his ideas and visions and how he looked upon the globe and the responsibility we all have to preserve nature. He was ahead of his time in a lot of areas, also in environmental engagement and international collaboration, and they are still relevant.
Yeah, they're timeless.
Yeah, they are timeless.
Yeah, they will live on forever.
Yeah, they should.
Well, I think we'll end on that note. It was really nice to come here and talk with you.
And thank you.
And now I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet your brother.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Good for you.
In the museum you find the authentic Kon-Tiki Raft, transported to Oslo after the expedition stranded on an island in the Pacific Ocean. Here I'm met by another grandchild of Thor, Olav Heyerdahl, an adventurer himself, which in 2006 participated in the Tigris Expedition. This was a modern-day recreation of Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki voyage. But, just like its predecessor, the Tigris Expedition also aimed to demonstrate the viability of ancient trans-Pacific voyages using a balsa wood raft. Olav has agreed to provide me with a deeper understanding of how the Kon-Tiki raft was built and sailed. So I'm standing here with Olav Heyerdahl, and you are grandson of Thor Heyerdahl.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am.
and you are, and I know you know a lot about the construction of the Kon-Tiki raft?
The construction of the raft is natural materials all over. The main logs is balsa wood, and you have cross beams, also balsa wood, and it's lashed together with hemp rope. Since it's natural fiber, it's quite flexible, and also when it's dry, when you put it into water, it shrinks about 15%. The deck is made of plaited bamboo, and they also had these reed mats on top. The hut is also bamboo, and the sail is cotton, and the mast is made of hardwood. They found the balsa wood logs in the jungle of Ecuador, and they floated the logs down the river, the Rio Quevedo, down to Guayaquil, which is the coast city of Ecuador. It wasn't kind of a long rope lashing all the logs together. It was 2 and 2 in pairs. If one of the ropes snapped off, the logs wouldn't dissolve.
So that was like a security mechanism.
Yeah.
Something I noticed of sort of the modern equipment that they brought is the yellow rubber dinghy, and what was that used for?
They used it when they were out filming and also inspecting the raft around.
So could they actually row and keep up with the raft, or?
It all depended on the wind and the current condition at the time. The current itself is about half a knot, and the speed on the raft with the full rig and the sail would be maximum about 6 knots, maximum.
6 knots?
Yeah.
So if you fell in?
I would be in, yeah, that would have been a disaster.
That would be a disaster.
Really, really dangerous.
Herman Watzinger made a false step at the beginning of the storm, and he fell into the sea. Before anybody could grab him, or he could grab the steering oar, a big wave had lifted him in one direction and us in another. Then Torstein and I tried to put out the little rubber dinghy, and we knew that when we jumped in there, we'd never catch up with the raft again, but we would pick up Herman Watzinger. And that's when Knut Haugland acted before he gave any thought to anything. He just grabbed the life belt and jumped overboard and swam holding it. But that's the only time, not only on the trip, but in all my life, that I afterwards felt my knees shivering.
What do you think is one of the most impressive things about an expedition like this?
You are on such a small area. It takes a lot of mental preparing. There are no ship lanes out there, not for helicopters. It's way too far. You have to bring your sweet water, and you have to bring enough food, obviously, or at least enough fishing equipment.
Thor spent 100 days on a raft like this.
Yeah.
You spent 70 days.
Yeah.
And what's the experience like?
You know, you feel lonely out there, and many boring days, many similar days, but also you experience the Pacific Ocean totally still, totally flat. We experienced waves higher than the top of the masts.
And we're talking 8 meters,
Yeah,
24 foot.
8 meters, yeah.
The waves are enormous. They come all the way from South America and always with one direction. So when they hit the reef, the vertical surf was higher than the top of the mast. And we were just like little ants. I think most of the men saved their lives by crawling into the bamboo hut, which collapsed on top of them. But a couple of us were hanging in the ropes, and it's almost a miracle that we were washed back on board again because we hang on to the ropes. That was a nightmare. It was so fantastic to wade ashore we were washed all the way up on the reef, and we could wade up and put our feet in dry, warm sand and walk on something that was stable after 101 days. That was like coming straight from hell to heaven, with white birds flying above us and coconut palms. And I'll never forget that either.
I'm going to explore the rest of this museum on my own now, starting here with an exhibition about Thor Heyerdahl and the Easter Island. Thor Heyerdahl's involvement with the Easter Island was significant and focused on investigating the origins of the island's unique culture, particularly its iconic Moai statues. Heyerdahl and his team conducted extensive excavations at various sites on the island. This included the Rano Rarako quarry, where the Moai were carved. These excavations provided valuable insights into the construction and transportation of the statues. Same as for the Kon-Tiki Expedition, Heyerdahl proposed theories that the island's population had origins in South America, challenging the prevailing view that Polynesian settlers were the sole inhabitants. After the Easter Island exhibit, you can walk down into the basement of the museum. Here you'll get a glimpse of the bottom of the Kon-Tiki Raft and see various marine life that they saw or caught along the way. In a separate room is a screen showing the original 1950 Academy Award-winning Kon-Tiki documentary. From here you continue through a 30-meter-long replica of an Easter Island cave, providing a glimpse into the island's ancient inhabitants. In the Thor Heyerdahl library is a collection of books from Heyerdahl's personal library and the man himself sitting behind the desk. Another room shows a film summarizing much of Heyerdahl's remarkable life before you step into the final exhibition. So the Kon-Tiki raft was not the only raft that Thor Heyerdahl made, and he also made Ra and the Ra 2 raft, which is the one you see next to me here. And with these rafts, he wanted to prove that 3,000 years ago there had been contact between the African continent and the Americas. In 1969, Heyerdahl and an international crew embarked on the Ra 1 journey from Safi, Morocco, in a vessel constructed from papyrus reeds, replicating ancient Egyptian designs. However, the Ra 1 encountered significant structural problems as the reed boat began to deteriorate, forcing the expedition to abandon their attempt before reaching the Caribbean. Undeterred, Heyerdahl organized a second expedition in 1970, Ra 2. This time enlisting the expertise of boat builders from Lake Titicaca, Bolivia. With their assistance, a new papyrus vessel was constructed. Incorporating design improvements, Ra 2 successfully completed the transatlantic voyage, sailing from Safi to Barbados in 57 days. This provided evidence for Heyerdahl's theory about ancient transatlantic voyages. These expeditions, while generating controversy, were significant examples of experimental archaeology, emphasizing international cooperation and cultural exchanges while also raising environmental awareness.
Now in his tower at Colomakerry, this latter-day Ulysses at 64 plans one final journey. Studying ancient prototypes, he again chooses the familiar crescent shape. Plans to build his craft of the Berdi reed from the marshes of Iraq. Then test her endurance till she sinks.
Well, this looks excellent to me. These, of course, will be the bundles of reeds lashed together by rope and just barely touching in the middle.
The very end of the museum talks about the Tigris reed boat, which between 1977 and 1978 was sailed from the Shatt al-Arab waterway in Iraq through the Persian Gulf and into the Red Sea. The purpose was to demonstrate the possibility of ancient trade and cultural connections between Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the Indus Valley, modern-day Pakistan and India, and Africa.
She really looks strange with her sails up, not a soul aboard.
It looks beautiful.
However, this boat was set on fire by Thor and the crew in 1978 as a symbolic act of protest against the war plaguing the region surrounding the Red Sea.
There was still a lot of life in that ship, a lot of life.
The only item remaining is the steering oar. Alright, that's that. I spent just over 1 hour inside the museum, And if you have more time afterwards, consider checking out the Fra Museum, which is just next door. Look me up if you need a local guide in Oslo, and also consider supporting me on Patreon. Ha det bra!